Good afternoon, Chief Justice.
Are you well?
I'm well, thank you.
Is there any difference in pronunciation between the kind of Strijdom you are and the one with a Y? Or is
No.
it the same pronunciation?
No, it's the same.
Okay, all right. And you were an advocate in private practice for junior counsel for some 15 years, am I right? Before you became senior counsel?
Yes.
And you've been silk for over 8 years, I think?
Yes.
What does your practice entail
Well,
for the past 8 years?
for the past 8 years, about 80% criminal work and 20% civil work.
Yes. And have you had occasion to rope in junior counsel?
No,
You haven't been able.
no, because in criminal cases, most people cannot afford a senior and a junior counsel.
Yes. Except, of course, for those complex ones involving millionaires or billionaires,
Yes.
they can afford it.
Yes.
Yes. Have you had a problem with reserve judgments, or have you been able to deliver them as expected?
No, I was able to deliver them within a reasonable time.
And how reasonable is your reasonable
Well,
time? You know, I say it jokingly because there is what is called normale police spoed.
Yes,
So their kind of normal speed is not everybody's normal speed.
yes. Mostly within a month or two.
Okay.
And in many cases, I delivered extemporary judgments.
Yes. Does that extend to civil matters?
Civil and criminal.
Thank you. JP?
Thank you, Chief Justice. Advocate Strijdom, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, JP.
Right. In your spreadsheet that tells the Commission what you've been doing when you were acting, I see that the bulk of your acting stints have been in the criminal trial area.
Yes,
And that accords with your specialization as an advocate, am I correct?
correct.
Right. But you've also dealt with other areas of the law. I see you've done 7 weeks in the opposed motion court.
Yes.
Right. This is mostly in Pretoria. Am I correct?
Yes, mostly in Pretoria.
Yeah. The Pretoria opposed motion load is heavier than that in Johannesburg.
It is.
Now, didn't you have problems regarding reserve judgments when you were in the opposed motion court?
No.
How did you manage that?
Pardon?
How did you manage that, not to have problems with reserve judgments?
Well, my attitude is that justice delayed is justice denied. So I worked at night and I tried to finalize my judgments as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So I could cope with that.
And I think I must thank you for availing yourself to come and assist the division. But what I'm curious about is how are you able to do this when, as a JP, we struggle to get senior counsel to give us more than, you are lucky if Silk give you 3 weeks to come and act. But you've been able to give us a lot more than that.
Yes.
How were you able to do that?
Yes, well, since I've started to act as a judge, you know that your private practice, you get less briefs because the attorneys tend to see you as, you know, that you act on a, you know that the last 2-3 years I've been acting on a regular basis. So then they start, they stop to give you briefs.
Okay, so giving long periods as a Silk tends to kill your practice.
It do,
I see.
yes.
Okay. I see you've also done 11 weeks in appeals. You've sat in criminal appeals as well as in civil appeals.
Yes.
Right. I thought you could have sat in full court appeals as well.
Yes. I
And
sat in full court appeals.
did you write any of those judgments?
Yes. You'll see that in that spreadsheet. You'll see that I wrote full court judgments.
Yes. I saw Richard Mnisi. I see that's one of them.
Yes. Steenkamp, the Steenkamp matter. There was another matter where I sat with the previous judge president in a full court.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Chief Justice. No further questions.
Thank you, JP. MEC?
Thank you so much, CJ. I can see you reported amongst the significant cases that were involved in the Hawks email one and the All Pay SASA one. Do you want to take us through why you felt those were two significant cases that you felt that need to be brought to our attention?
Can you just refer to those two cases again?
The Hawks email one.
Hawks email one.
Yes.
No, I'm not aware of that. If you got the,
Page.
There are two Strijdoms,
I think that
MEC.
is a case of the other Strijdom.
MEC,
Oh, I've got the wrong Strijdom.
there's the one with an I and a J.
Okay.
He's the one with an I and a
Maybe it's
J.
because of the Hawks email, Chair. So. Maybe CJ, let me just sorry about that,
No.
Advocate. Really appreciate. Let's deal with the issue of transformation. Gauteng is one area that is a cosmopolitan that need to represent literally everyone, and everyone need to get access to fair justice and other related matters. What's the single issue that you think that will bring that is related to transformation to the bench?
Well, I've got no problem whatsoever, and I agree that there must be gender equality, and I also totally agree that there must be transformation. And in my view, they can appoint more women and black people to the bench.
I'm such a personal you. What is it that you think that will assist to ensure that there's transformation within the bench if you are a successful candidate? Is there changes or support or programs that you really believe need to be enhanced or supported if you are a successful candidate?
I don't know on what basis I can answer you on that.
So
What contribution I can make as a judge
Yes.
to transformation? No, I don't know.
Maybe let me put it this way. In your current responsibilities, have you appointed juniors that will enhance the transformation or gender representativity? Have you worked with juniors that represent the spectrum of society?
As an advocate? No, I haven't worked with juniors. All I've done was I was involved in the lecturing of pupils at the bar for many years.
So in your entire life, there's nothing related to transformation or support to transformation or representativity that you were involved, obviously,
Well, I was involved.
except in golf.
Yeah, except for the training of pupils at the bar, I was also involved in the Old Bophuthatswana with the training that was before 1994, with the training of prosecutors and magistrates, black prosecutors and magistrates, where they had the opportunity to become prosecutors and magistrates.
Maybe sorry to ask you, in your
So I
current
think in that way I've made a contribution there.
in your current workplace, do you have
Yes.
people that are black or women that are black that are working with you or assisting you, or it's just an institution that remains untransformed?
No. I've got a lot of black colleagues at the bar, and they used to approach me every day to ask them for advice and to assist them.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you so much, MEC. Justice Navza.
Mr. Strijdom, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm going to put a series of questions to you, and you can put them down to bad experiences in the past. I see that you were involved prosecutorially in the magistracy
Yes.
at really bad times during our country's history.
Yes.
One was during the years of student uprising. Other was in states of emergency and increased labor resistance to the apartheid state. And you served as a prosecutor both from 75 and then later from 86 to 93.
Yes.
You know, the experiences that we had, generally speaking, there may have been exceptions, was that in those days, it was very difficult to discern a division between the prosecutorial staff and the magistracy. I'd just like for you to explain to us how, given that setup, what it was like for you at that time as a prosecutor and as a magistrate, and the sea change that has now had to occur when you were acting. And let me say, I accept what the Judge President put to you, that you assault that makes yourself available, so I'm willing to give you credit for that. I'd just like to have your response to that and how you've undergone this change and the commitment to the new constitution, particularly given the past.
Yes, well, it was difficult in those days as a prosecutor. You had to prosecute people that, it was perhaps a riot or that type of people who assemble, and that it was unlawful at that stage for people to assemble or to demonstrate. So you had to prosecute those people. But when I joined the bar, you came to a different conclusion. When you look at our constitution, you know that we've done a lot of wrong in the past, and I came to the view that things must change. We must all change for a better South Africa. And I think since I've started at the bar, you see things different, from a different angle. And I've been magistrate, I've been on the side of the prosecution, I've been on the side of, I was a magistrate, and when you sit as a judge, acting as a judge, you see things from a different perspective. And then what is very important is our constitution, that one must comply with and promote the aims of our constitution.
Could I, what struck me in those days particularly was young children who were often public violence cases.
Yes.
And the sentences were particularly vicious.
Yes.
It always struck me as one of the big sins of the past. Did you have any experience of that? And I'm just trying to figure out how it affected your psyche, whether you were involved in that. And I understand that we all now have to change and we have to accept it. We have a commitment to the Constitution. But perhaps you can just talk about that a bit.
Well, if you look at it retrospectively now, that, it was very difficult. You had to do a job as a prosecutor. If people break the law, you had to prosecute them. You haven't got a discretion. You had to follow the law. And whereas today it's totally different. And one regret for what happened at the past, but there's nothing I can change about that now. Fortunately, we've got the Constitution now, and that we must follow the aims and we must promote the Constitution. But it was, for me as a prosecutor, not always easy during those days to be a prosecutor.
Commissioner Mpofu.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Strijdom. Yeah, I'm not sure. If we were a prosecutor in the 80s, maybe we've met before. As a public violence accused. Yeah. No, but on a more serious note, I'd like to find out. Well, you say that, of course, you're right that one cannot change the past, and you did some regrettable things. Then maybe as a prosecutor or as a magistrate, what are those things?
Well, to sentence someone that's been convicted and you don't actually agree with the, well, as a magistrate, you don't agree, someone who now have got the right to assemble or to demonstrate, those days it was an offense, and you had to prosecute them, you had to convict them, and you had to impose a sentence. So it wasn't that easy, although you know that, this is not fair. You had to impose a sentence because, according to the law. Well, it depends on what type of sentence you impose. I mean, one can always impose a suspended sentence. You had to consider the circumstances of the client, his personal circumstances, look at his age, all those aspects you must take into consideration.
Thank you. Yeah, and also I think, in the 80s, later in the 80s, I was able to, as a young lawyer, to do terrorism trials, as they were called then, with the likes of Judge Nafsoya. And that's why we're asking you these questions. In those, did you do any of those terrorism trials?
No.
Public violence?
Public violence, yes. In the regional court, when I was a prosecutor in the regional court. Do you mean as a prosecutor or as a
Both.
Magistrate?
Both.
Yes. As a prosecutor, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Commissioner Mampuru.
No, ke a leboga, Chief Justice. On book 1 of 1, page 86, paragraph 3.2, it says, the candidate's appointment would not further the constitutional imperative that the judiciary reflected the racial and gender composition of South Africa. Vis-a-vis the qualifications and the experience that you have, do you still regard yourself as the best candidate for appointment to be a judge? Number 2, following on what Commissioner Mpofu has just said, how do you associate yourself with JSC Strijdom of 1956? Thank you.
How would I associate myself with? No, no. Obviously, I've never met him.
You don't have a knowledge. You don't have any idea of who he was.
I know who he is, but I cannot associate myself with his actions, and yeah. So I think that's a bit a difficult question.
No, Chief Justice, I'm asking the question because he says he has done some of the regrettable actions. That's why I'm asking the question. Do you know him, or do you have any relations with him? Because you are the same Strijdom, you share the same surname.
Yeah, no, I don't know him.
Commissioner Malema.
Sorry, Chief Justice, he has not responded to my first question.
I beg, you had not finished, Commissioner. He says he doesn't know him. Maybe you would want to put it again.
The question is, on page 86, it says, the candidate's appointment would not further the constitutional imperative that the judiciary reflect the racial and gender composition of vis-a-vis. Vis-a-vis his qualifications, does he still regard himself as the best candidate for appointment?
Yes. I do see myself as a suitable candidate. However, I've said that I'm in favor of gender equality and transformation. And yes, that's all I can say.
Thank you, CJ. How many staff members do you have in your office? Not in the group, your office.
In my staff, in my office, only one receptionist, and I use a typist. That's not permanently in my service. We, as a group, use the typist.
So how many are you in the office? You are 3. It's you, the PA, and the typist
Yes, the receptionist and the typist.
in your office.
Yes.
And then how many are black people?
The receptionist is a black woman.
Have you ever visited a township?
Yes.
Where?
When I was in Bophuthatswana, on many occasions we had to go into the townships.
Where? In
for
which
inspection
township? In
Loka, Garankoa, Winterveld,
Can you speak any indigenous?
Mabopane.
Can you speak any indigenous language?
No.
Why?
Commissioner, I cannot give a reason for that.
I can't hear Chief
I
Justice.
cannot give you a reason why I cannot speak.
Yeah, have you ever seen any need to
African
learn
language.
indigenous languages?
Yes, I think it's a need to it will be a good thing to speak an African language.
But you still didn't see any need to learn it when you think it's a good thing to
No,
know.
I did not.
You didn't see any need to learn African language.
No, sir.
Do judges have a role to play when it comes to transformation?
Yes.
What role will you play to transform society as a judge?
Well, sir, maybe to give you an example, I've attached a letter or email to my application form where a black woman appeared in my court in an opposed matter, and she appeared in person. And I've guided her right through the proceedings. And at the end of the day, I ruled in her favor. And she wrote a comment to the judge president. Maybe if I can refer to that document. It was, the lady was Busizwe Maduna. She wrote that, "Your Lordship, please allow me," and this is a letter that was, email that was addressed to the Judge President. "Your Lordship, please allow me to extend my sincere gratitude to the High Court and in particular Judge J.J. Strijdom for the assistance given in my legal case." This lady was not represented, as I said, she appeared in person. "By way of introduction, I'm a layman in terms of the law, but still represented myself at the High Court recently. I'm a black female, and this was my first time defending myself in a court as a plaintiff. I certainly did not have the correct terminology or know-how of when to even sit or stand. However, the judge and his team guided me through. I was also grateful to some of the advocates showing me Ubuntu and informing me of what to do and when through whispers and hand gestures. Judge J.J. Strijdom was courteous on all accounts." And then she ended up by saying that, "I'm also grateful that Judge J.J. Strijdom allowed me to represent myself as I could not afford to have counsel representation. This is the type of compassion that can make a significant contribution to making our society right, in at least understanding that we can have access to resources such as the courts with neither fear nor retribution due to a history of economic exclusion.
Do you support transformation?
Definitely, yes.
How does your appointment help us to transform the judicial?
So as I've already said, I'm in favor of transformation, but I cannot say how my appointment will help transformation.
You support transformation, therefore you can't be subjective. In supporting transformation, you ought to tell us now, how does appointing you help to transform the judicial, since you are a supporter of transformation?
No, so I don't know.
It doesn't help us, right?
No.
Appointing you doesn't help us to transform the judiciary, am I right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Nyambi,
I'm covered, CJ.
thank you. Prof.
Thank you, CJ. My question is a follow-up to Commissioner Malema's one, particularly on this letter, which makes reference to the concept of Ubuntu, because I was going to ask to what is your understanding of that concept of Ubuntu, and also how does that concept helps us to transform the judiciary in terms of its functioning, and also the jurisprudence that comes out of the court. Thank you.
Commissioner, I don't know what is the concept of Ubuntu.
Commissioner Didiza.
Thank you very much, CJ, and good afternoon, Advocate. Yes, good afternoon. Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes. On your questionnaire on 7, you are asked, apart from your practice as an advocate or attorney or your employment in academic world, have you been involved in any activities? You say, since 2008, I was involved in the training and lecturing of pupils at the Pretoria Bar. I also I think it's presided in oral examination. In the training and lecturing, given the past that we come from as a country, and as you said in one of the answers from one commissioner, that there were times where you had to do something that inwardly you know it was not fair and just. How have you brought that experience in the current training where you have to enable people to function in a constitutional democracy, particularly as judicial officers or legal practitioners?
So I would say that to concentrate on our constitution, because that is so important that the constitution apply to the law, to the executive, to all of us, to the judiciary. So I concentrate on the constitution, and when the lectures that I gave was more in criminal procedure, and there you concentrate on the rights of an accused person, of an arrest, of an these rights to fair trial and all those aspects, where you bring the constitution in, and yes, on that basis, that's how I've done it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Minister?
In relation to your contribution to jurisprudence, you allude to a judgment in which you acted as a judge of Modisane versus Road Accident Fund 2013.
That's
JDR.
correct, Minister.
Yes. The matter as is put related to your contribution towards the development of African customary law, specifically in relation to African customary adoptions. Would you?
Yes.
Yes. Now, in this instance, the question of whether a customary adoption existed, thus conferring rights on the children following the marriage under customary law.
Yes.
With the mother of the children. What has been your experience deriving from that matter relating to African customary law? Was it an isolated matter, firstly, or was it something that you had over time been exposed to?
No, it is. I've dealt with similar matters when I was sitting as a magistrate in Bophuthatswana, where, for instance, there was a rape case where this child was raped, and there was an attorney, a white attorney from Pretoria, who appeared there, and he started to cross-examine this girl on the basis, the complainant, by saying that, but you know that this is impossible. How can you wait 2-3 weeks to report this matter? And then I interfere and I said, wait, listen, what is your custom at home? And this lady said, well, I cannot go to the police. I must first report this matter to my mother, and then we must wait for my father, because he only come home every second week, and then we must report the matter to my father, and they discuss it, and they will then decide whether to go to the police or not. So my experience is that injustice can be done if you're not aware of the customary law. Because if you do not apply, if you are not aware of the procedures, you can, as I said, injustice can, because when the court can come to the conclusion and say, but listen, this is highly improbable that you wait 2 to 3 weeks before you go to report this matter. And that's why I say that it is important to also to promote, because the customary law and our constitution in terms of section 39 subsection 3 also accept the customary law as long as it's not as long as it's consistent with the constitution. So we must also promote the customary law.
I'm a little bit confused with the example you're giving.
Yes.
Are you condoning the fact that it would be right, that is, if indeed that is according to custom, that a child who had been raped should wait for 3 weeks before the matter has been reported?
No.
Am I missing something?
No, what I'm saying is that you must understand the custom to understand the reason why the child did not report this matter.
Yeah, how was that made out to be a matter of custom?
A matter of?
Of custom, that the child could only report once the father in 3 weeks' time became available.
I don't understand that question.
Well, maybe I misunderstood your example. You're saying that the matter had to wait for 3 weeks before it's reported because the father was only going to be available in 3 weeks?
No, that is just to understand the way why she did not report the matter for within 3 weeks. Today is different. It doesn't matter whether she reported within. She can even report it after a year. The law says it's not inadmissible.
Oh, okay.
But during in that period, that was that law was not applicable.
Okay. The earlier response you gave to the question regarding whether you are aware of the concept Ubuntu, did you say that you were not aware of that concept, or did I miss something?
Pardon?
Sorry? He did understand. Oh, okay. He didn't understand the concept. Yes, that's the question really I'm asking. I just wanted to confirm if indeed you said you did not understand the concept Ubuntu.
Yes.
I'm just trying to understand your exposure to customary law, because it seems to be at the very core of the indigenous knowledge system, insofar as it's at the core of African customary law even. How did it escape you? Maybe I should ask a question differently. Your exposure to indigenous customary law, was it only in relation to these two matters that we have just talked about? Because you seem to give me the impression that you've had exposure to African customary law.
That's correct, yes.
I see. Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you so much, Mr. Strijdom.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
You're excused.